Okay, I think we should get started. Hopefully everybody can hear me all right. I'm Ryan Kastner. I'm one of the directors for the Engineers for Exploration program. And on behalf of myself and Kirk Sugars, I'd like to welcome you to these final presentations for our summer research program. So this program started about a decade ago, believe it or not. I still remember the day when a really young Albert Lin kind of busted into my office with this typical amount of charisma and passion, and asked me if he thought we could convince some people to help build drones for an expedition that he had to go to Mongolia, a National Geographic expedition, to find the tomb of Genghis Khan. And I said, I think absolutely we should do this, and I'm sure we can find some awesome people to help us. And we did that, and more importantly, we started this program, this Engineers for Exploration program. So he took some of that technology to Mongolia. If you ask Albert if he found the tomb of Genghis Khan, I think you'll hear a good long story. There's actually a National Geographic series on this that you're welcome to watch. But our program has expanded sort of a lot since that point. We've had a great partnership with the zoo, the San Diego Zoo Institute for Conservation Research, starting about a decade ago with some camera trap work with Beth and Morgan, looking at some gorillas in Central Africa, and expanding beyond that to radio collar tracking with Dr. Glenn Gerber, condor cams with Dr. James Shepard, camera traps with Colleen Wazinski, audio recorders with Dr. Matthias Tobler and Ian Ingram, and other things. So Maya archaeology with Professor Tom Garrison, some Smartfins with Professors Bill Bresnahan, mangroves with National Geographic Explorer Astrid Sue, and all longtime National Geographic Explorer Octavio Alberto. So many different projects that we have, and you'll see a lot of those today. Over those 10 years, we have hundreds of Engineers for Exploration alums, and I'm really excited to have sort of basically 20 more graduates in our program today. So this is the 8th year of our program, the summer program. I want to thank the support of National Science Foundation. They've been funding this since the beginning. The Qualcomm Institute at UCSD, departments of Electrical and Computer Engineering, Computer Science Department, UCSD Halajigalu Data Science Institute, and our many partners and collaborators that you'll see in the presentations today. This summer was quite unique, as you can probably imagine. To be honest, we were really considering canceling the program once COVID hit. We were wondering, how do we do a hands-on system building program? How do we do that remotely? Typically, we have students going to Guatemala and Mexico, Cayman Islands to deploy their technologies, and we couldn't do that this summer. There's no travel. But we made a decision to try this experiment, a remote experiment, and move the program virtually. And I think you'll see really soon that this was a really great idea for us. The students made some amazing progress despite the non-ideal circumstances. So we have 7 projects this summer. Each one will have a short video that will play. And then the researchers are here to answer questions after the video ends. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in. Or raise your hand or some other way to get my attention, and I'll try to moderate them, and the students can answer them right after the videos are done. So without further ado, I'm excited to show you these amazing works that these close to 20 students, all the way from PhD students to high school students, have done over the summer. So Dylan, if you can start the videos.
Yep, no problem. I'll take it away.
Hindsight is an opportunity to look inward. As we reap the product of what we have sowed for generations, cries for help have become deafening. The simplest path towards self-improvement is to listen. Our acoustic species identification team out of the Engineers for Exploration lab here at UCSD is collaborating with population sustainability researchers at the Beckman Center for Conservation Research at the San Diego Zoo. Our common goal is to develop and deploy machine learning and digital signal processing technologies that can parse through and extract significant information from terabytes of audio recordings, thus minimizing human labor that is commonly spent labeling and interpreting extensive audio sets collected around the world over long periods of time. By working towards species classification, we plan to leverage our collaborators' statistical models that have monitored the effects of different land use types such as logging or mining on tropical rainforests. We hope to find and push new boundaries within the bioacoustics field that take a holistic approach in improving the foundation of knowledge of the world's natural soundscapes that are begging to be heard. The summer of 2020 has kicked the Acoustic Species Identification Project into high gear as an up-and-coming Engineers for Exploration project. The team has worked as the tip of the spear in our collaborators' pilot program to break into the passive acoustic monitoring field. We have been provided with over 1,500 hours of audio collected from the Madre de Dios region of the Peruvian Amazon. The audio set consists of minute-long clips recorded every 10 minutes with open-source AudioMoth hardware set to a 384 kHz sampling rate. Such a dense dataset taken over multiple months containing vocalizations outside the human hearing range has motivated us to take a multidisciplinary workflow. To break into the unsupervised machine learning field, we found work done by researchers in developing metrics for relative biodiversity observed in an audio clip. We found a use case for one such metric known as the Ecoacoustic Complexity Index, developed by Dr. Juan Colonna. This indice had the potential of identifying rain in our data, which could aid us in isolating insects and other patterns affected by rain. In the unsupervised clustering field, we have tested out the viability of species classification using different clustering techniques such as hierarchical k-means and spherical k-means. We have tested these methods with various clustering metrics on datasets from both the Peru audio set and on bird species calls from the public Xenocanto database. Our work in clustering will lead into experimentation in the semi-supervised field to further seek the answer to whether or not we can confidently identify species with minimal labeling and training data. We deployed a more empirical digital signal processing approach to the rain classification task. This involved narrowing down known frequencies where rain can be detected between 600 to 1200 Hz. By looking at the signal-to-noise ratio and mean power spectral density over that range, we can consistently find values in our dataset where rain can be heard. By increasing the thresholds at which the detector labels a clip to be rain, we would consistently hear instances of trucks driving on the paths nearby the audio moths. It also helped pick out faulty clips that experienced electrostatic interference. When it comes to our ventures into the supervised machine learning field, we have narrowed our work down to bird vocalizations due to the Xenocanto ease of access to labeled audio. Before going directly into species classification, we decided it best to test out binary classification. We have leveraged a GitHub repository known as Microphone and vetted it on a test set of bird calls from the Madre de Dios region. With some confidence in our model, we have worked to use the local score values in order to narrow down positively labeled bird species clips into subclips with just the calls. Our hope is that by using the Open Soundscape Bioacoustics classification package developed by Kitsys Lab, we can use the narrowed down clips to train our first species classifier. Looking into the future, we hope to continue to test out new techniques that can aid us in the extraction of knowledge from soundscapes around the world.
Shutters just shut up.
Great, thanks. So I think Jacob can say hello, and if there's any others from that team that want to wave and to get acknowledged, this is a initial project that's just starting up. So much audio recordings from the jungles, and they've spent a lot of time painstakingly going through that and coming up with some nice techniques to try to reduce the amount of time that we actually have to listen to all this data. So there was a question maybe one of the team can make from Ben Hoffman is, so how much more time do you anticipate would be required to add the ability to identify non-bird species like frogs?
As stated in the video, bird classification is kind of the easiest species to begin trying to classify because we have access to a lot of labeled audio thanks to Xenocanto. Fortunately, with frogs, we don't quite have as much access. So hopefully we would try to, we hope to break into the semi-supervised machine learning field, and with that, I think we can begin to try to cut into identifying maybe frogs or insects in general and seeing like, oh, let's see if we can cluster frogs separately from insects, separately from birds in general. But it's certainly tricky. And I think another technique we can try to break into that field with is there are some available frog calls, but we also want it to be kind of region specific. And so I have collected like one small data set. So maybe we can try to build like a OK binary classifier and just try to get more and more information. Maybe try to use like active learning techniques to create a easy process to get human labels to verify, okay, this is a frog, this is not a frog. And then we can feed that back in and train another pipeline to try to get, just try to improve our models.
Thanks, Jacob. So maybe there's a couple more questions, follow-on questions that maybe Gabriel and Eugene can help answer. So related to what sort of animals, or I think generally speaking, what kinds of things do you think you have opportunities to identify, and what kind of things are easy to identify, and what kind of things are hard to identify?
So we did do some research. We dipped our toes into potentially looking at back calls. And the reason why we're looking at back calls is that their sounds are at a much higher frequency range. So it's very easy to kind of extract the data from it by knowing that like other animal sounds won't usually be in the echolocation call range. But as Jacob was mentioning, we kind of deterred off of that because there's not good labeled data for bats. But it's potentially something that we can go back to later in the project.
Yeah, I think what makes an animal easy to identify in our data is two things: how loud it is and distinct it is from the background noise and from other animals, as well as how much already labeled data there is for that animal. For birds, there's a massive amount of already labeled data. For bats, there's a lot as well. Frogs, not so much, and other insects, even less, or other insects and other animals, even less. And for distinction, like the animals that have the most distinct calls, bats are really good because, as Eugene said, they're in sort of a frequency range of their own. There's not much going on in that frequency range that they vocalize in. And frogs are very loud. So the choruses of frogs are very distinct. As for animals, I'm not really sure. Looking through the data, I believe I have heard some like large cats, but I don't think this is really specialized for macrofauna. I think camera traps are a lot better at doing that kind of thing, and passive acoustic monitoring is better for bats and birds.
Great. Well, outstanding project, guys and gal. Let's move on to the next video.
Mangroves are a type of tree species oftentimes seen in the coasts of tropical areas. These trees make up forests that foster a large amount of biodiversity, making them essential to the communities around them. In addition, these mangrove forests help not only fight the causes of climate change by exceeding its storing carbon dioxide in the roots, but also reduce the effects of climate change, being able to mitigate the damage from tropical storms. Despite these apparent benefits of mangroves, these forests are constantly under threat from the encroachment of human activities. So the Engineers for Exploration Mangrove Monitoring team, with the Alberto Lab at the Scripps Institute of Oceanography, is working to help survey and learn more about these ecosystems. On the other hand, surveying these forests by hand is very intensive, and as you can see, very muddy. Traditionally, mangrove ecosystems were monitored using satellites. However, in our main area of interest in Baja California Sur, we have tried different techniques near cities like La Paz to monitor mangrove forests. We have deployed drones to take over 10 terabytes worth of mangrove images, which are much higher resolution than that of standard satellite images, to create very detailed mangrove maps. This high-resolution imagery has allowed us to take advantage of deep learning and convolutional neural networks to achieve accurate mangrove classifications. However, such a network takes in and classifies tiles or square sections of imagery rather than individual pixels, which greatly limits the precision of our classifications.
The obvious first direction was to move away from classifying sections of images to classifying the individual pixels of the image. Thus, Arden Ma and myself, Sam Cole, used a UNet, which originally was designed for biomedical applications, and applied it to classifying mangrove land areas. I improved on this and implemented a CRF, or a conditional random probability field, to improve these pixel classifications even more accurately.
In addition, we also aim to augment our original CNN algorithm to use other forms of data to make our models more generalizable to different regions. I, Dylan Hicks, developed a novel hybrid CNN architecture which fuses drone imagery with PlanetScope satellite pixels. With this hybrid CNN, generated features from satellites, such as vegetation indices, can be incorporated along with original pixel values to help detect non-vegetation areas. This results in a more precise and accurate mangrove classifications when compared to other methods. This summer, we also hope to improve the efficiency of labeling mangroves. As you can see, mangrove labeling is a very labor-intensive task, taking hours to complete a single area of interest. So, David Foreman developed an image labeling tool, MLPaint, to greatly increase the speed of mangrove labeling. This program uses suggestions given by a machine learning classifier, allowing the user to more intelligently label sections of images. If you want to find out more about MLPaint and its capabilities, visit the link in the video for more information.
Lastly, we know that deep learning models are not the easiest tools for biologists to use, so we developed projects to make our work more accessible. We developed a web-based mangrove image classification tool that leverages cloud computing to deploy our machine learning models. This tool allows scientists to upload drone imagery and allows them to download and visualize these classified maps. This enables anyone across the world to use our algorithms to generate mangrove statistics, no matter their technical experience or computer hardware.
Thanks for watching, and of course thank you to our collaborators. This would all be impossible without them, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact us in our emails in the video.
Great, thank you. I didn't see any questions going by, but if anybody has any specific questions for the Mangrove team, the past few summers they've gotten to go to Mexico, as I mentioned earlier. Fortunately, that wasn't possible this year, but we have some IOUs, I think, for the students in this summer for the future for trips there. And hopefully some opportunities in Jamaica coming up as well to do some mangrove monitoring. All right, well, if there's no questions, I think we can continue on. Dylan, if you want to play the next video. And again, feel free to ask questions in the chat.
Laikipia Plateau of Kenya, Dr. Shirley Strum has been studying several troops of baboons for nearly 5 decades. One of her aims is to better understand their collective decision-making. With troop sizes varying between 20 to 150 individuals, it can be difficult to keep track of both group level and individual movement trajectories, particularly since the baboons prefer rough terrain and large boulders as sleeping sites. To improve her logistical ability to track multiple animals, she reached out to the team at Engineers for Exploration, where we set to work using drone footage to get a bird's eye view of the entire troop, unlocking information about baboon behavior that has not previously been available. To process the drone footage, first, movement of the camera is corrected for, ensuring that all the previous or historical frames share the same origin. This process begins with looking for common features between the current frame and the historical frames. Using the common features, a transformation is then calculated. This transformation can be applied to the historical frames, generating the adjusted historical frames, which now share origins with the current frame. The adjusted historical frames are then combined using an intersection algorithm. The intersections are then unioned together, generating a single reference of what the background should look like. This reference background is compared against the current frame to extract the moving baboons. We can then convert each baboon into a single centroid using blob detection. The output centroid of the blob detection represents the results of our motion detector. The next goal is to keep track of the baboons over time. This is difficult because we may lose the baboons for numerous reasons. It is possible that a baboon may be occluded by a tree or other obstacle. A baboon may also stop moving, making them indistinguishable from their background. In order to address this, we create a probabilistic map of where the baboons are most likely to be. The first step in generating the map is predicting how and where a baboon is likely to move during the next frame. This prediction can be done using a neural network that takes inputs about the scene and provides confidence intervals for the baboon's next most likely position. These predictions can then be updated using the observations from the motion detector to improve upon the prediction, thus generating our probabilistic map. Looking back at the team's success and with the goal of continued progress into the future, we would like to thank everyone who has made this possible, including the current team, former team members, and the collaborators. If you would like to learn more about the project, feel free to contact us at the email listed on the screen.
Okay, thank you. So who doesn't love baboons, huh? Who doesn't love monkeys? All right, there are a couple questions in there, I think from the Mangrove team, if the Mangrove team wants to cover those potentially just in the chat. And if there are any other questions for the Baboon team, I'd be happy to take those now. If not, I think we'll just continue to chug along, huh, Dawn?
Wait, I have a question for the Baboon team.
But yeah, go for it, please.
I was just kind of curious if you would consider like using, I'm not sure exactly what you are using, but if you would consider using like posture estimation to sort of use the, to get that from the drone footage maybe? And so, I don't know, maybe that gives more insight into like individual and group movement within like a, you know, the sphere of the drone.
So it's definitely something we've considered. Kind of the difficulty we run into with it though is that these drones are flying anywhere from approximately 80 meters to 100 meters. So the resolution of any particular baboon is roughly 100 square pixels. So we find it difficult to have access to many strong identifying features. So this has actually prevented us from doing a lot of like machine learning directly on the images, and it's prevented us from kind of doing anything to estimate pose. So I see there's a question in the chat. Are drones disruptive to baboon troops at all? Would something like a balloon work similarly, or would it require additional R&D to make a workable balloon? So I see two questions there. Let's start with the first one. Are drones disruptive to baboon troops at all? Initially, yes, but baboons, much like humans, are very good at habituating to new sounds and to new objects. In fact, there's a clip of it in the video. You can see that some of the video that in some of the earlier videos, the baboons are reacting to the drone. One of them even runs away from the drone, but kind of as the drone was more present, they habituated to it and kind of stopped reacting to it. And that's kind of most seen in the kind of the last video of the drone footage, where numerous baboons just stopped or were not paying attention to the drone. So the second question, would something like a baboon work similarly? Or would that require additional R&D to make a workable balloon? So I don't have too much to say about this. Yes, a balloon would work similarly. In fact, kind of the initial discussions about this project used I believe, a weather balloon or something similar rather than a drone. Those were kind of before I joined the project, so I can't speak too much to the decision about balloons or drones. Other than my understanding is that the drones are probably simpler to manage and maintain.
Yeah, we used to do a lot of balloon work in the early days. So I think one of our first summer projects with the summer program was taking a big balloon tethered and dragging it, sort of hiking along with it and taking pictures. So I think the technology that you developed would be certainly relevant for the balloon. The big value of a balloon is it just sits there forever, and it doesn't, it can just stay there. Basically, you just have to pump it up. You have to get some helium for it, some gas, and sometimes that's hard depending on where you are. But once it's up, it's pretty stable, and it stays there, like I said, for forever, pretty much. The drone, as you know, takes 20 minutes and then you're done, or maybe 30 minutes if you're lucky. And then you have to recharge and go up again. So it sort of depends on what scale you want to monitor at. But I think that the general techniques that the team has developed is would work for either, right, in some sense.
There's nothing that's really specific to a drone or to a balloon. It's really, the techniques are specific to any camera that has like 6 degrees of freedom. So kind of one reason that might benefit for this project for a drone over a baboon or for a balloon, man, I cannot speak this morning, is that while we focused on one sleeping site in this video, there are a couple that the researchers visit, with 2 main ones that are about the same size. So the dragging a balloon around becomes kind of a little bit more difficult with that.
Then there's one more question, Chris. Have there been any attempts to identify individuals within the troops?
Not directly as part of our work. It is something that there's been interest expressed in. I know that I personally can't tell the difference between the individuals within the troop from the video, but oh, hey Deborah.
Hey.
Our collaborator, one of our scientific collaborators, Deborah Forster's here. I think she can probably answer that question better.
Just to say, we work, so the researchers in the field recognize individuals and they track individuals very carefully, social, ecological things. I think for the relevance of the troop movement, I think what would be possible is to detect what we call age-sex class. So you could say if it's an adult male, a young juvenile, lactating female, and that already, even just identifying the sex and age class would be helpful. The other thing we're trying to work on is to have the drone flying at the same time that there are people who know the individuals on the ground collecting data. And that may be able to help us. It's still a long shot.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to be done, I think, in this, and longer term, we want to try to do some more of this behavioral automatic behavioral monitoring or identification, which is super challenging. So great, I think we can go on to the next video. Thanks, Chris and the Baboon team. And Deborah for stopping by.
Burrowing owls. Their population has been declining in the past decade, causing researchers at the San Diego Zoo Institute of Conservation Research rushing in to help.
In order to do so, they need to study the owl's ecology. Through observing camera trap images, allowing researchers to develop science-based solutions.
Camera traps are motion-activated cameras that take a burst of images which are stationed in front of the burrows.
The issue with collecting information like this is that it requires lots of time to sort through and label each image.
We were given a dataset containing about 5,000 hand-labeled data. For each image, they had to label things like the content within an image, time, and interesting events, which can take a toll on the researchers given that they have many images to go through. It's even more unfortunate that some of the images are unuseful data, like blank images caused by mistriggers of the camera trap. What if we can use machine learning to classify this information and behavior for them? My name is Justin, a senior computer engineer major at UCSD.
My name is Nick, and I'm also attending UCSD while majoring in electrical engineering.
We are with Engineers for Exploration, designing a pipeline using machine learning that would serve as a tool to classify and label the researchers' data in order to save them time.
This pipeline consists of 3 different stages: detection, classification, and analysis. We'll first be taking a look at the detection stage. This stage consists of 2 different segments, the mega detector and the cropping. In this segment, we made use of an open source software called the mega detector, designed by Microsoft. What this did is it takes an image in and it determines if there are objects, humans, or animals in it. And it also throws bounding boxes over the objects or animals. So this was very helpful to us to identify what the contents of an image had. So from this, it also spits out a JSON file. And this JSON file gives us other helpful information when it comes to analysis, like the coordinates of the bounding box, confidence percentage, and what category, as in animal, human, or objects. After this, we take the images that have the bounding boxes and we crop them down to every individual bounding box. The reason we did this is so that it's easier for our classifier to determine what it's exactly trying to look for. So this helps simplify the images a little bit more. Now, I'll be shooting this over to Justin to talk about the classifier.
Thanks, Nick. For our classification stage, one classification we are making is a simple binary classification of which images have an owl and which don't. First, we take our cropped image, pass it through our CNN, which will spit out a list of probabilities of each classification it could be. Then we take the highest probability to classify the image, which in this case is an owl. Our CNN is a basic CNN made up of a sequential head, which ensures a one input, one output model, a pre-trained feature map made up of 50 layers to understand and analyze each image, and a softmax activation layer to convert the output of the feature map to an array of probabilities, as you saw. With these classifications, we then pass it on to our analyzation stage.
In this stage, we determine if an image has an owl or not in it. So tying back to earlier, we have these cropped images, we pass them through the owl classifier, and we determine if there's an owl or not in every subimage. Well, we tied this classification back to the original image and helped give an overall classification for the entire image. So in this case, we seen owl for each of these subimages and determined owl for the entire image. Same for the non-owls. We classified these as non-owl images, and the original is classified as non-owl.
Given this pipeline, we have created a foundation to lead to the bigger goal of classifying behavior by allowing the flexibility of inserting more features to classify.
A feature we're currently working on is quantifying the number of owls within an image. The number of owls within an image may infer certain behavior like mating or feeding. As we expand on these features, we will be able to better identify and classify behavior for researchers.
We would like to thank E4E and our advisors who guided us on this project, the San Diego Zoo for giving us the opportunity to work with them on this cause, and our internship program, SRIP, for giving us the opportunity to participate in E4E.
Okay, thank you. It's another new project from the zoo. Any questions that we have for the team here? Okay, well, feel free again to use the chat to ask questions. Let's move on to the next video, please.
In the field of conservation ecology, tracking animals is a significantly useful method to aid in the monitoring and management of species. Traditional methods of tracking usually involve tracking a radio transmitter attached to a target animal and using a radio antenna to detect that transmitter. The way that this method usually works is that you take a radio antenna, like the one pictured here, and you point it in different directions until you get a signal. When a signal is detected, you know that an animal is located somewhere in that direction, so you proceed in that direction until the animal is found. This can make tracking animals over uneven terrain an arduous task, as the animal may be located in a direction with large plants or other physical obstacles. In 2013, the San Diego Zoo Institute for Conservation Research teamed up with UC San Diego's Engineers for Exploration to solve this problem by developing an intuitive and reliable drone-based system to track radio transmitters. A previous version of our system was deployed in 2017 on the island of Little Cayman and again in 2018 on Big Ambergris Cay in the Turks and Caicos Islands, where researchers from San Diego Zoo's Institute for Conservation Research sought to track iguana hatchlings over a period of 4 weeks. The way that this system worked was that it would fly over a specified area in a lawnmower pattern, and then after completing the flight, information collected by the drone would then be used to generate an estimate of where the animal was located. When looking at the time distribution of different tasks in this process, they found that the same amount of time was being spent in calculations as it was spent in the air. This led to the development of our current system, which now calculates an estimate location in flight as data is being received, in order to streamline the processes of the previous system and cut down the total time. This summer, we redesigned our UI for the system to be able to communicate with the drone's payload to configure search parameters the system needs to detect the target frequencies, as well as display information sent from the drone in real time. Through the UI, the user specifies the target frequency to be searched for, which must be in the range specified by center and sampling frequencies, and this will indicate to the drone which pings to pick up and include in the system's calculations. An issue with the previous version of this UI is that it made our efforts dependent upon Google Earth, which has no easy ability to function offline and is therefore a problem when tracking animals in areas with no internet connection, which is very common. This UI has the ability to load maps that drone, ping, and estimate locations will be displayed over, and this map can either be a loaded raster file or you can load in web maps, which can then be cached for offline use. During a flight, the vehicle's current position will be marked by this symbol on the map, and its path will be marked by a line as the flight continues. The colored dots on the map represent pings picked up by the drone payload as it moves along its path, and pings with stronger power will be colored red, and those with weaker power will be colored blue. The blue diamonds that is being displayed represents the current location estimate point being generated based on the pings received as the flight goes on, and you can observe this point changing and becoming more accurate as the flight continues.
In an actual flight, the vehicle's pilot needs the vehicle to display its status so that the pilot doesn't have to take their eyes away from the drone and look at the computer. Our vehicle contains a system of onboard electronics that accomplishes this using a UI board. Our plan for the UI board during this summer was to fix and update the software to be able to process a handful of new inputs. The UI board was implemented into the project because after the processor changed from Intel's Joule to the UP core, the inclusion of a UI board was needed to handle various functions. However, the former UI board software was missing some key abilities such as processing the altitude, heading, and voltage of the drone. So to fix this issue, we created programs which would be able to handle all of the previously untouched data. Now with the new modifications, the UI board can manage the necessary GPS information through the process shown in the diagram. The UI board was made to communicate data between itself, the GPS, the compass, and the onboard computer. During a flight, the UI board first receives information from the GPS and compass through a serial port. It then decodes the GPS, compass, and voltage data through the NMEA decoder and the compass module. The program then runs the combined data through the sensor encoder, which prepares the data to be sent. Finally, the data is sent to the onboard computer. At the same time, the onboard computer sends status package, which contain information about the status of itself, to the UI board's status decoder through a serial port. The UI board then decodes and reads the message and proceeds to light up the 5 LEDs according to the status packet data.
Throughout this summer, these students have put a significant amount of effort into developing well-engineered solutions to the problems we have. These solutions are robust and scalable, which will enable future deployments with these changes to last longer in the field and be far easier to use. Over the coming months, we will continue to integrate these and other reliability and robustness changes to the radio telemetry tracker with the goal of fielding a fully operational and expedition-ready system. We would like to acknowledge the much appreciated support provided by these organizations that have enabled this project over the past few years.
Excellent, thank you. This is a project that has been going on for many years now. So one of the more mature projects that has had several field deployments. Once again, we missed a field deployment this summer, unfortunately, but hopefully we'll get back out there with the new improvements soon. And just in case you're worrying, we didn't fly any drones. Those were all simulated results. So we made sure to follow all the safety protocols this summer. There's a couple of questions, maybe Mia, or I don't know if Eugene's here, but there's a question in the chat. Is Mia here as well? I'm not sure. But the question was, why flying in a lawnmower pattern? Why not, do some sort of circle or sweeping circle or something like that? I guess why did you use the pattern? Yeah.
Yeah, so right now we don't have like dynamic path planning. So the idea is that you don't really know like where in a certain like search area the transmitter will be. So the idea is just you cover the area as like evenly as possible with this lawnmower pattern to be able to see where it actually is. Right now we are actually like studying like the effect of different types of search patterns on like the accuracy of the estimate location, but yeah, we just started with a lawnmower pattern.
Yeah, that's something that in the past we've looked at was more of a sort of a directed search type of thing. The challenge there is sort of a lot of times in practice, it gets sort of scary for the people that are in the field if the drone is doing something that it doesn't seem like it should be doing. So in many cases, while you think something is going to be really optimal and better, in the end result, the simplest thing is the better thing just because you're confident that it'll work in the field. I'm sure many people who have gone in the field can tell you some horror stories about how everything breaks. And so you try to keep things simple as you can. But Nathan in particular, as part of his master's thesis a couple of years ago, looked into the sort of more directional approach of pathfinding in some sense. But good questions. There was one other question about the drone being autonomous or manually controlled. It's also a good question in some sense. Largely what we do is we program the path in beforehand, and then the drone just mainly follows the path. So I'm not sure if you call that autonomous or controlled, manually controlled, but it's sort of a combination of both. But it's not making any sort of autonomous decisions on terms of where to go. All those are preset, statically done. And then one more question from Ben about corrections to the search algorithm about when the animal is moving. So I don't know, Mia, if you want to handle that question.
Yeah, I believe at the moment we're just going with the assumption that the animal is stationary. I think that movement is something that we're gonna go into in the future, but right now it's just stationary.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
It seems that well, I was wondering if the real-time system is designed for multiple animals or just one, because it seems the blue diamond indicating where the animal was, do multiple of those appear if there are multiple animals, or how does that work?
Yeah, we've built it to be able to handle multiple targets. In the UI, I don't know if you saw, but there's a place to add target frequencies. You can add multiple of those, and the way that our estimate calculator works is that it calculates each estimate location per frequency. So it is built to handle multiple.
So I might have missed this, but each caller emits a different frequency?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mia. And I don't know if Eugene's here for this year. For the first time, we tried out some high school interns, which worked out really nice. And I think they're back in virtual school right now. So I'm not sure if Eugene was able to attend today, but he did a great job this summer on this project as well. Of course, Mia did an amazing job too. So let's continue on. Dylan?
We are FishSense, and we aim to improve the way ocean ecosystems are monitored. Through efforts in engineering and design, we plan on developing a device that will make this goal possible. Fish are a crucial component of our planet's ecosystem, and as such, it is essential to monitor their general population health and well-being, as many species of fish have become endangered. However, many of the current methods used to monitor fish populations are very invasive and can even be harmful to the very fish being monitored. Therefore, we are developing a method to monitor fish from a distance without causing them unnecessary stress or harm.
We are working on a device centered around a depth sensing camera that can detect the size and position of any fish and record the data for the user without needing to interrupt the fish's natural patterns.
To do this, throughout the summer we worked on testing and optimizing different depth cameras and softwares to function underwater in a smaller setup.
Our project is just getting started, and we have plans to move our testing into larger tanks, like the ones in aquariums, within the next month. With a new waterproof depth sensing camera setup, we'll be able to move this project into deep waters with divers to test out the device.
Great. This is another one of our new projects this summer, very new project that just started this summer. Fredo and Julia did a great job. Typically, we would put those in a fish tank. In fact, we're getting geared up, hopefully soon, to put them in the Scripps, the Birch Aquarium tank, and do some tests for real. But this summer, we had to improvise a bit, so we got some local fish tanks. And as you saw probably in the videos, everybody had a fish tank in their houses, and we're able to do some experiments. So not ideal, of course, but we're getting very close to actually putting these onto a robot and putting these with some divers to do some initial experiments, which should be really fun. And I see a lot of opportunities in this project, basically, of just taking some interesting technology, these depth sensor cameras, and trying to throw them underwater. So if there are any other questions for Fredo and Julia? Okay, so let's continue on down to the next video, please.
Our oceans cover more than 70% of the world, yet only an estimated 5% of that has been explored. Coastal waters are home to hundreds of thousands of marine species, yet without enough information on their health, we could see their populations dwindle and die out. Our coastlines are also not impenetrable to our pollution and mishaps. Like a great barrier, they protect us from the sea level, but they are slowly weakening against a rising tide.
On the coast of the Scripps Institution of Oceanography, there is only one near-shore buoy, providing data for miles of shore. This is an issue because it creates an assumption that in the area that the buoy covers, all the oceanic parameters are the same. Imagine, if in addition to this nearshore buoy, each of these surfers below could become virtual buoys, recording important information about ocean health. This is what Smartfin hopes to bring to the table. We hope to gather thousands of new data points in understudied locations to help keep tabs on coastal health. As you can see below, in La Jolla shores, we have already collected hundreds of data points by simply using the fin.
The Smartfin has a range of sensors, including GPS, thermometer, and an IMU, or inertial measurement unit. These sensors allow the fin to determine its location and measure sea surface temperature in the surf zone. In the past, project teams used the IMU data to calculate peak direction and period of the waves, and began the difficult task of calculating wave height. This summer, we focused on improving this calculation by reducing noise in the data before it runs through the double integral analysis, a process that integrates acceleration into velocity and then once again into position.
Over the course of the summer, we found that the most effective methods for filtering our data were to downsample it and remove abnormal peaks that are caused by events such as the surfer falling off of their board or riding into a wave. Downsampling made data processing faster and showed that it would be useful for the new generation of Smartfin to record at 1 Hz. Removing the peaks helped determine useful data from non-useful data. Ultimately, by using these methods, we reduced the average difference in wave height measurements between the nearest buoy and the Smartfin from about 14 inches to just 5 inches.
We also developed a method for validating Smartfin data using a camera system to track a kayak fitted with the Smartfin. For this experiment, we labeled footage from an offshore camera to measure the wave height and compared these values to the wave height the Smartfin recorded. Having this direct comparison will be crucial to understanding how accurate the Smartfin is in a real-world situation, as the buoy is not in the same location as the fin and is therefore not the best comparison.
After the launch of the first generation of Smartfin in 2017, we have collected thousands of data points across the world from hundreds of surfers. This project uses extraordinary individuals, known as surfers, to not only conduct critical research about the changing ocean, but also tells a story through science. Smartfin combines the immense grassroots power of the people with the unstoppable force of the scientific process, taking a step in the right direction towards healing our planet.
This project would not be possible without a few key individuals. First, we would like to acknowledge the students who worked tirelessly on this project. In addition, we would like to thank the E4E RAU program for this opportunity, as well as our trusted advisors. We would also like to thank the UCSD Undergraduate Research Scholarships Program and Philip and Elizabeth Heisted. Lastly, we would like to thank our collaborator, Phil Bresnahan, and the entire Smartfin team for their work engineering the Smartfin and assistance with our project during this summer program.
Thank you very much, Ben and Brooke. Okay, I see there is a question in the chat. So Ben, you want to answer that in person?
Kurt's losing his internet, unfortunately, it seems like. So there are a few questions. Ben and Brooke, are you there? I think you're here. There's Ben. I see him toggling his mute on and off. A couple of you, there's a few questions in there if you want to answer those.
Okay. Okay, now I can talk. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, data is recorded on the Smartfin, and then when you bring the Smartfin home and connect it to the charger, it uploads to your phone on Bluetooth and then onto the Smartfin website.
They're changing that as well, right, in the next version to just do a cellular offload, I believe.
Yeah, so with the next generation of Smartfin, it will just automatically upload to the cloud as soon as the Smartfin leaves the water, which is going to be really cool. Let's see. There's some. Oh, so a remaining thing is we'd like to continue working on the wave height calculation. There's still a lot we can do with that, just because recording wave heights over long periods of time with an IMU can be pretty challenging to figure out how accurate it is. So we want to do a lot more validating to make sure that the numbers are accurate.
And then to add to that question, one of the things that we might be looking into is maybe incorporating a pH sensor or a chlorophyll sensor as well.
And there were a couple, I think, questions related to cost and also how to get one. I think if you want to address those.
Yeah, so the Smartfin won't be for sale. It's going to be distributed through a nonprofit called Smartfin. It's an organization, and they want to manufacture all of them and give them out to surfers for free, so that they can find committed surfers who will be able to surf regularly and produce results in areas that they need.
And then cost-wise, so what are the sort of components, approximate bill of materials do you think for one of these smartphones?
Oh yeah, I believe each of the fins costs about $250 to $300 to manufacture, but I'm not 100% sure on that number. The components are pretty simple. It's just like a standard IMU, which aren't that expensive, GPS, and a thermometer, as well as a small lithium-ion battery. And then also the components of the actual fin aren't cheap either. They're the same as what would be on a normal high-quality surfboard fin.
Okay, great. There are no other questions. I think that's the last project for the summer, and so we'll wrap up. Just a few things to sort of emphasize. The summer program is over, or about to be over, but this is a program that goes on all year round. So especially if you're UCSD, we're always interested in dedicated people, students to work on these projects. We get a lot of questions about, I'm too young, I don't have experience, I'm only a freshman, things like that. But honestly, that doesn't matter. It matters how much time you want to spend on these things. I think there are a lot of UCSD students here, which is great. I'm happy to see you all. And if you're interested in working on those, please feel free to get in touch with us. The website is e4e.ucsd.edu. And there are multiple ways to get in touch with the team leads or Kurt and I. So that's the big thing I would want to say. And sort of as final remarks, it was really great to work with these teams of researchers this summer. We certainly could have asked for a better situation, but given what we were given, I think they did amazing things. I'm sure you agree that they all did some amazing things on these projects. Remotely using remote sensing technology to monitor ecosystems and in some sense help save our world. So we'll make all of these videos available after the fact on the website if you're interested in looking at this. And feel free to reach out to all of us. We're all in some sense very passionate about these projects. So if you're interested in helping out in any way, we're very eager to hear from you. So thanks all for joining, and have a great rest of your summer, and hopefully see you all soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.